Okay, this video we're going to do, we're going to go over the authentication of the birth certificate because that gets put in the declaration of status. So again, it has to be done first. This is really step number one, is to get the birth certificate, or actually the certificate of live birth, authenticated. You can use a birth certificate and you can use a naturalization certificate to achieve the same ends. All you're really doing is claiming the entity. All right. Now you're claiming this and putting it on the public record. So you're essentially giving public notice by building this record. Okay. To commercially protect it, we're going to go over that, and that's really going to be powerful because all the governments, all the states, all the governments in this country, the United States, and just about every country are functioning on commercial law. That is the law of the sea, and they've brought that to the land, and they're all using it. And that's why, there is no constitution, all that stuff. Their constitution is the commercial law. Okay, so anyhow, let's take a look at the authenticated birth certificate and walk through the steps on getting one authenticated. For those of you that already have your authenticated birth certificate, you might even have a declaration of status, blah, blah, blah. You guys know this already, so you probably don't even want to finish watching this video, although, hey, you might want to because you learn something new every day, so who knows. There may be something in here that I did different that you might get some use out of. So let's take a look at the authenticated birth certificate. Okay, so here we have the certificate of live birth. In this picture, then you'll see the state authentication certificate for the state where the certificate of live birth was issued. Then you'll see the United States certificate, or I'm sorry, authentication certificate. Here's a brief flow chart for you on how to authenticate your certificate of live birth. So you can go ahead and take a look at that. Of course, rewind it, pause it. This will give you a good overview. Now, why do we authenticate? Okay, that's a big question that needs to be answered, that you need to understand. All right, when you're authenticating this certificate of live birth, birth certificate, or naturalization certificate, it's doing a few things to that document. Okay, so again, what you first want to do is, let's just go over the steps first, and then we'll go over why we're authenticating. I kind of jumped the gun. So you're going to call the vital statistics where you were born. You're going to order a certificate of live birth. You want a certificate of live birth if you can get one, not a birth certificate. Certificate of live birth will have all the details on it. Your mother's name, your father's name, time you were born, registrar signature, things like that. Okay, the birth certificate doesn't have any of that. It's very brief. It's got, it's got your all capital letter name on it. It's got, yes, it has your mother and father, but it doesn't have signatures. It doesn't have certain aspects to it. Basically, they call the certificate of live birth the copy of the long form. All right, so you're going to order that from Vital Statistics. When you get that back, you probably want to order 2 or 3 copies, or as many as your state will allow at one time. Some states have restrictions. So you order the copy, you get it, and then you send it off to the Secretary of the State site. Look up authentications. You don't want an apostille, okay? Apostilles go to Hague Convention countries. The Hague Convention is another corporate body. It's another body of countries that's just another corporation. We want authentic. We want the state seal to be the authentic seal of the state. We want that to be the original, what they call the de jure state seal, the lawful state seal. So in order to get that, you must tell the Secretary of State that you're traveling to a country that is a non-Hague member country. So Jamaica, Taiwan, you have to look. There's a list of them. Just search on the internet, non-Hague Convention members. There is a list. I forget which website it's on, but you can find it. So go on there, do your research. All right, non-Hague Convention member country. For this one, I use Taiwan. okay, and tell them it's going to, again, a non-Hague Convention country, and they'll authenticate it. All right, so you're going to get that back. Once you get that back, and you can use your birth certificate, and you can use the naturalization certificate. But if you have the ability and the opportunity, get the certificate of live birth. All right, so when that stuff comes back, now you're going to have what we just showed here on the video. You're going to have the certificate of live birth, the state authentication certificate. So now you have to do an acceptance and acknowledgement form, and here is why we authenticate, because the authentication turns it into a deed. Okay, it turns this thing into a letters patent and a deed. I want you to look the legal definition of both of those up. Look it up on Google. Those of you that have law dictionaries, look it up. Okay, the deed is, by definition, any writing signed, sealed, and delivered. Well, it's signed, it's sealed, and it's delivered to you. That's a deed. But no deed is perfect or perfected without an acceptance and acknowledgement. So you have to draft up a form, an acceptance and acknowledgement form. All right, and it's basically saying that you do accept and acknowledge this deed, blah, 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 blah. And again, it's got a notary on it, and I'll post that up here. Yeah, you need that form. You need your true and correct copy form, which is in the video of the Declaration of Status. All right, you do a true and correct copy affidavit, and they all get put in with your Declaration of Status. All right, remember, a copy of the authenticated birth certificate with an affidavit of true and correct copy with the acceptance and acknowledgement all goes into your declaration. Now, what you've just done with that is you say, okay, it was mine to begin with, but then I lost it, gave it to the government, pledged it to them. Okay, so now I'm just letting the government know I do have a claim in this. This is mine. This entity is mine. All right. The authentication is turning it into a deed, and if you look at the United States authentication on the front, it says, "To all whom these presents shall come, greetings." Okay, that is a letters patent. A letters patent is a grant. It is a piece of property that's granted to you, it's in the document form. Okay, they're granting you a right. Okay, so you have a right to this property now because you're going to be traveling overseas with it, allegedly. It's what it's basically for. So they have to give you possession, and they have to grant this to you. Okay, so you're going to accept and acknowledge it as a deed, and now you have a bona fide title to this thing, essentially, once you do your recording. That is why we authenticate. Okay, so here you have your notice of acceptance and acknowledgement form, and next I'm going to put up the affidavit of true and correct copy of the original, which goes with your certificate of live birth. So I made it a little easier. I made the affidavit of true and correct copy so it's not coming directly from the notary, so you don't have to worry about the notary certifying it. I did realize that, if I'm certifying it and I'm taking an oath to that, that is just as powerful. So I just did the affidavit of true and correct copy. You don't need you have to get a notary to witness it, but you don't need the notary to do the certification itself, okay, because you're doing that. You're swearing to it. All right. And also, one more note on authentication. When we authenticate our records, okay, and obviously this becomes part of the record, when you take these records and you record them, you authenticate them, okay, now you have what's known as the best evidence rule, okay? The best evidence rule is, if it ever comes to it, someone is going to have to put up an original record, okay, signed and sworn to meet the authenticity of your records. Okay, so whatever their claim is against you, whatever they're saying that you're not, they're going to need authenticated records to rebut yours. And they don't have them. They never have them. So that's the beauty of authenticating records. So I hope this helped with authenticating the certificate of live birth. Again, this gets put together with your declaration, and you record it all together, and then you get the entire record authenticated. All right, and that's in the other video, so if you want to jump over to that and watch the Declaration of Status I believe it's part 1, then you will see what needs to be done as far as putting everything on the record. So anyway, again, I hope that helps.